All right, guys, welcome to Restaurant Punk, episode 173. I am Yianni, everybody's favorite restaurant punk, I think. And joining us today is producer, boss, who's run the show for 173 episodes, Liz. And also, you've seen him do 38 recipes with that guy. What's his name? Joe? Little brother Pete in the house.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me after 173 episodes.
What do you mean? It's your 75th. You're on every other episode. What the are you talking about?
I'm sitting on the couch today. I'm not in the hot kitchen. I'm not doing recipes. I'm just hanging.
This is where it's at.
I like it over here. It's nice. I even have a beverage. It's splendid.
I like it on this side.
Yeah. And I love having Liz here, too.
I don't get that much, but I like it. Not enough for strange people to talk to me on the street.
Well, they are going to come up to you and ask for your autograph now because now they know who's behind the scenes.
I can't. Even if they glance at me, I'd probably have a bad day as a result. It's terrible.
Liz, what do you want to talk about? You got something on your mind? You said before the show you had something you were thinking about. And I said, don't tell me. Just let's sit down and just spit it out there.
I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. I have nothing.
What do you mean you got nothing?
No.
What's a topic, back in the day when we were first shooting, before we started posting whatnot, you and I, along with Nico, had a conversation. Do you remember what that conversation was about? Because
I do.
Would you like to bring that up again now that time has passed and I've matured and my brother is also here?
Thank God he's here.
Voice of reason.
So it goes back to restaurant owners / managers providing new hires, servers, with the tools they need to do their job as far as menu knowledge. Because they had a previous episode where menu knowledge came up and, shouldn't your employee know? Shouldn't your server know? Of course they should know, but what are you doing your part to bring it all together? So they have the tools.
Well, I feel like that's one thing that lacks in a lot of restaurants that I've been to, especially going out with Nikos, who's usually sitting here, and him being celiac or gluten-free and going out and just asking, excuse me, is there anything on this menu that is celiac friendly? And them just being like, what's that mean? Oh, gluten-free. Okay, does that mean no bread? And that's just one aspect of it, but it's like a broad range of things from vegans to vegetarians to the broth to the stock to the simplest things on the items that I find that a lot of servers or anybody in the industry has no knowledge whatsoever about their menu at all. And it's frustrating coming from a restaurant and having many within our group and trying to get that information across because everybody's like, yeah, okay, no, I got you. This is gluten-free or this has no meat in it. And then they come back to you like the next day and they're like, hey, we have a table and they have a few questions about the menu and getting frustrated over, I just told you this yesterday. Like, it doesn't stick half the time. And I don't know how to...
It doesn't stick because, unfortunately, a lot of people don't care. They only care about, the immediate things they need to make a buck. And then they move on. That's the truth. There's not a lot of pride in people's jobs. It's just the truth. That's the fact.
Are we talking specifically about restaurants or overall
in life?
That's a pretty harsh statement.
It is a true statement. People's concern... Okay, so people... Their concern, the level of concern is limited to what they need at that point in time in their life, in my opinion.
Well, what's the difference between, what do you guys think is the difference between a career and a job? I think 90%, I'll go with the short answer on this. I would say 90% of the employees are people that work at a restaurant. 90%, that's not going to be their career. That's their job that's leading them to their career. So, I think now that we're talking about that topic that you, Nico, and I talked about, and now having my brother here who is all about having systems in place, I've watched him in action. The difference between him and I is if we're catering an event, he'll show up 4 hours earlier, have everything done, and have 2 hours to kill.
That's true.
To where I'll show up 30 minutes before like a hurricane. So I think what Liz was touching on was, and I've experienced them both, we're going to use restaurants. There are independent restaurateurs and there's corporate restaurants. Going through corporate training to be a server at a national corporate place, they have training manuals, training booklets. There's a system.
But they're
Yes.
trying to keep the consistency across the board.
They're
And
trying to.
trying.
And that's why I love what we just talked about, because job and career. Are they just there for a job? Do they really care? But the point she wanted to make was, you have to have some kind of training there. So when I look at what we do at Kara Restaurant Group, do we have a 5-day training? I think because we're not a franchise, we just have so many different concepts. But going back to refinement, it's something that we would need. Just consistency builds credibility.
Well, I feel the larger that we grow, because I know many times somebody has come in looking for a job, and we're like, okay, fantastic. There's a store down the street called Flying Fish. Go get a shirt. Be here tomorrow, 8 a.m. You're bussing or you're food running, and just throwing them into the fire. A lot of the time, I see your face because you're like, that's up. That's not right.
This is what's up, because I was one of those people where I was told to go get a shirt. I'm thinking, wait, what? I had to go to the store, get my own uniform. I had an issue with that. I did. I didn't make a big deal of it. It wasn't a huge deal, but I thought it was bizarre that
It's not what you're used to.
No, it's not what I'm used to, but
And I think that's why we're successful. I think,
could you make people get their own shirts?
No, I think, we talk a lot about this on Restaurant Punk. Whatever everybody else is doing, do the opposite if you want to be successful. And I know that sounds funny. I know that sounds ridiculous, but think about it. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, you're not creating a monopoly. You're becoming a diner with a 13-page menu just to please everybody. Try something different.
I agree with that.
It's debatable.
But
You don't have to.
No. I believe in trying something different and doing what other people aren't, right? But my issue is I don't remember anymore. Forgot.
You heard it here. You heard it here. Liz doesn't remember anymore.
It's gone.
It's gone. I think that means I'm right and she agrees with me.
It's not what that
That's
means.
exactly what it means.
Pretty sure it's not what that
And
means.
I think Yianni means conforming to the.
And I forgot.
Oh, I gave you the spot. I stopped.
see
But
that?
being non-conforming way of operations.
But you like how he shifted the topic? Because that's not what we were talking about.
I did that
He
on
tends
purpose.
to do that.
Well, would you agree that my brother and I are complete opposites?
Yes.
Kara Restaurant Group is not where it's at without my brother and I, because we are complete opposites.
And you bring both.
If we were the same, Pete would agree with this, I
Yeah.
think. If I were like Pete, what would happen? We'd have I promise you this, we'd have one legendary, phenomenal restaurant for the rest of our lives. That I promise you, because him and I can go into any restaurant. I know a couple brother duos that are, one in particular that I think are the best.
Well, I
that I've
thought you
ever
were
seen.
talking about, one restaurant. I see that 100%. But as we grew, and once we hit, I think, what was it, number 4 was a courthouse. When we opened that up,
Yep.
we realized it was just the two of us doing everything, that we were overloaded with everything. It was frustrating. It was hard to operate everything. And I think with that growth, you know what? Getting to 4, solid. But there was a limit. What do they call it? There was the Peter effect.
The Peter principle.
The Peter principle. Once you can only work as high as your designate, as you have a threshold, basically.
Yeah, you reach the threshold of your
Yeah.
hierarchy. If you're a general manager and that's the highest that you've reached, you learn to be a general manager. But if you get bumped up to a director of operations, you don't have any experience there. And the Peter principle is your ceiling. And you can Google it under the Peter principle. Yes? Great theory. Phenomenal theory.
Oh, I thought you just made that up. That's a
Oh
real
no,
thing.
no, that's a real thing. I can take.
It's a real thing.
I take no credit. It's not because of me.
It's not
anyway.
the Peter principle, my brother principle.
I was gonna say that's.
But
pretty-
it's true. Yeah, if you look it up. And I think with us, we hit it with 4, and we could have kept going, or we could have stopped at that point. And this is where Yianni and I are different, because Yanni's like, well, why stop? Let's keep going. How do we keep going? What are the steps we have to take to continue this growth without sacrificing anything at all the restaurants, and having them run smoothly and actually give opportunities? Because when you're stuck in the job and not your career, and there were people that were in the restaurants that they wanted that to be their career,
right.
and this is where Yianni's idea of saying, okay, let's open it up. Let's broaden this up and give people opportunities, and people that grasp these opportunities like George and Nico and everybody and growing as a group together really made the biggest difference in the world. I think it was Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, that said, I was operating a business and somebody offered me X amount of dollars for it. And I said, no, I'm going to keep this and make it right. And he took on partners to fill in the gaps of where the areas were that he needed his logistics. He was trying to get everything across the globe. And he's like, I made a 50-50 partner with somebody. And 5 years later, I sold the business for $4 billion.
I've heard that story.
Yeah. But he couldn't have done that without partners.
Yeah.
Like he hit his ceiling in the same way we hit ours. And I love the group. I love working with everybody now. And we're a family.
I like that you guys continue to bring more people in because different perspectives it's like adding more flavor to like a stew. The more you know what I'm saying?
I like that.
And it's more rich. There's
like
more
that.
depth to it.
Depth.
It's bringing more to the table.
Everybody
It's great.
brings their own touch to it too.
Well, you can always measure profitability, but you can't measure durability. And I've said this before. That's why I like the stew reference, because you're adding depth. And I like to use the word durability. Like, how do you break us? You know, no employees. I'm going to play off what Peter said, the Peter principle. There's also a principle called the Pareto principle, to where, I don't know the year, maybe 100 years ago, but this gentleman in Italy found that 20% of the peas that he was growing were growing the most, and the other 80% weren't doing much. And the Pareto principle states that 20%, let's use wealth in the United States, take the 20% of people, the highest earners, against the 80% of people. Who's richer? The 20%.
20%.
The more I thought about it or read on it, I'm like, let's just use Cara Restaurant Group for an example. Take the people in the group, and you could probably take about another 15 to 20 employees that are spread out that we'd like to bring into the group. That 20% produces way more than the 80% of employees that are maybe just hanging out, I want to say, or are just there to work, which they do a good job. Let's take a server or a cook that does their job, but yeah. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Don't quote me on I believe it is the Pareto principle. Yes.
So I actually remember what I was going to say before. It makes me think of, you're talking about, growth and sacrifices.
Right.
So you do sacrifice something. So with the other topic about employee knowledge, so you have an expectation, okay? You expect your employees to know. But the thing is, you're growing, you're not focusing on the little stuff like training them properly. You're sacrificing. So is it fair to have an expectation? That level of expectation, if you're not providing them with what they need. And as you grow, you still have to maintain balance in many areas. And I feel like that's an area that should not be neglected.
Do you believe, I don't know what the word is, but I don't think anybody can really work hard, really hard, unless they want to do it.
Correct.
Unless they're into it, unless they love what they're doing. And I think that kind of plays into it to where, the training. I do believe you can train somebody for a month straight and just knock it into their head until it explodes, and they still won't get it. There's a gentleman, I forget what his name is. I think it's, we'll call him Michael for some reason. And let's say, he, he's good at something and he's on a project and he's just not doing it. And it's brutal because you're like, please.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but maybe he hit their Peter principle. Like maybe they were a great employee and maybe they're a great manager, but maybe that's as high as they're going to get. Like maybe you can't rely on certain people. You can't. I think, didn't Nico say this? Like not everybody's you. They can't rise as high as you can. And maybe they can. Maybe they hit their.
But I want it.
Yeah, but you want it. But
we're not here
you
at
can't
176
force it in.
episodes.
You can't force it
Liz.
in.
Not.
This is
Do
true.
you remember Liz in the beginning when we started this?
Oh yeah.
She didn't have to be forced to work. She wanted it.
Yeah. She was on top of it. I still have pamphlets, the originals. I'm gonna put them on eBay.
I can make an argument that when George came along, besides you, then there was Nico, and then George came along. George, for me, saved the group because I just needed somebody that wanted it almost as much as I did. And then let's say back in 2022, when we started this and Liz came aboard, amongst 10 people, I know you're sitting right here in front of us, so I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass, but she wants it.
Yeah.
And you can tell. You don't have to like.
No, you can always pick them out of the herd every time.
That's where I would
They stand out. Like, I remember when Noelle joined the group, she stuck out. I remember when Matt joined the group, he stuck out. George joined the group, stuck out. I don't remember when Nico joined, but he was always part of the group. It was like right at the get-go.
Yeah.
Like I was still helping with dishes and just learning the kitchen for the first time when I met Nico.
Yeah, but in the book Restaurant Punk, on chapter 17, I outline, the group and, the main people that brought it to where it's at. And there's still plenty of room to grow. The hardest part is to get to, a certain number. But, I obviously, all of you have read the book, obviously. But, I credit Peter with starting the group. I credit Nico as number 2 in around 2010, saying, okay, that's the second pillar. And we looked for a fourth person for 7 years.
I remember that.
7 years.
We tried having groups. We brought in other people. You tried.
I tried
hard.
Because I wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted it. And I want to tell and just let everybody know that I don't want it for me. I want to create for you because when I die, when I'm on my deathbed, I want to know that I created for other people and their kids and then their kids after them. So I know it sounds ridiculous, but I don't know. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't dream of being rich or having money. I like creating.
Well, you're not a selfish person in of yourself. You look out for everybody around you and their best, their well-being, their future, their families, everything. And that's where I know a lot of business owners that are selfish. They're like, okay, wow, I can afford a brand new Corvette. I can do this. I can buy a Ferrari or buy a house in Florida or whatever.
Pete, they're the fuel to my fire.
They are, but I know.
Fuel to my fire.
Yianni, in the other sense, he's like, well, I can afford to open up another restaurant. Let's buy this property next door and open up an ice cream shop or a coffee shop or a fine dining place that overlooks the bay. And you know what? Let me put down this much money to make back pennies off that, but for perpetuity, forever, to own the property, to get a little back every month or every year and give somebody else an opportunity to jump in and, operate their own restaurant or do this, that, and the other thing. And, that's the unselfish side of running a company and being a business. And, I think one of the other episodes we did was how come my line cook drives a better car than the owner? I think that says a lot about the operator of a restaurant. And it says a lot about their attitude and, how they hold themselves compared to everybody else. And it says a lot about them.
Yeah, I think the reason the episode that Liz and myself with Nico got heated is because, I'm so stuck on growth that I forget about the details when it comes to training somebody and making sure that their menu knowledge is there. And, it sounds horrible to say it, but as far as priorities go, I didn't have that as a priority.
Right.
I think just looking ahead at just growth, like what is it going to take to get to the next level? And that's why I like having Peter here along with you because he has systems in place. When I watch him in the kitchen, we're preparing for something, he stresses that with every cook. So maybe it's better suited that we're having this conversation together when it comes to putting steps in place. And, now, how many years ago was that? 2 years ago? You would strive to get there. Now with Nico being a president too and focus on refinement, I think those things are going to happen. So it brings a certain calm.
No, that's good.
And the work culture revolved around informed employees, servers.
It's not just limited as to them. There's a bigger picture to it all. It's not just them being informed because you provided them with what they need. Like your chefs, you're not going to give them dull knives, correct? Right? But you might, okay, I don't know, maybe you might, but it's showing them that you care, okay? When an employee feels like the owner or manager cares about me, they're going to go above and beyond for you.
Well, here's the thing, too. I think this started off with buying your own shirt at Flying Fish.
Ah,
So we're going to give everybody the tools and things that they need. But if you've seen as many people come and go
Right.
within a day, a week, a month, it's hard right off the bat
I get
to give
that.
that 100. But if I see the person stay there for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and really care about the place and give it their all and, show up to work 5 minutes early and be one of the last ones out and not asked to leave, yes, I will give them whatever tools they
Right.
need to push them and continue to lead the group, do a good job at work, whatever it is. I love it when somebody comes up, and I know my brother does too, and says, what do you think if we, do you mind if I stay after and do a little bit of this, or has another vision for the place to, just step it up just a little bit. It says a lot about that employee, and I will give them as many tools as they need at that point.
absolutely. I'll give a shout out to Katie Hess.
Katie Hess.
Katie Hess.
Yes.
A while back, I locked the door to the restaurant. I bought a residential steam cleaner with 100 different attachments and heads and whatnot. I just put on some music, poured some coffee, got a pack of cigarettes, and I just was just steam cleaning all the little details, just all the places you don't look. And I was just on a hunt for grease. And Katie Hess was working at Shimon, so she came in to get some ice. And she just walked in from the back door and just saw me doing this. And she just stared at me. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm looking for grease. I'm hunting for dirt. And she's like, "Okay, have fun with that." A few days later, I walked into George's place in Courthouse, and she was working. She said, "Can I borrow that steam cleaner that you were using?" And I'm like, "For what?" She's like, "Well, I want to do a cleaning party here, and I want to use that." And I said, "Sure." So, my face was non-existent, but I was so proud of her. And I was like, that's where it goes to spreading culture.
Yeah.
And that's what I was leading. That's what came to my head. And look, it's not just a once in a lifetime occurrence that happened with Katie, but that one stuck out for me.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody saying, "You know what? I'm a server, but I care about this place." And that's what
I
it was
remember
talking,
you
and I love
mentioning that.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah, I was
big
really
one.
proud of her because I know
Yeah.
she cares.
Yeah.
But that for me, I was like, that's a good one. Just showing some interest. So
Yeah.
that's a leader doing and not telling,
Well,
and then spreading that culture as opposed to a cancer.
yeah, that's a lot of I see a lot of owners or chefs even, it's the industry that we're in. So I've seen a lot of it, but you have people that rule by fear and you have people that rule by, what's the word I'm looking for, that make you thrive.
Yes.
They just inspire you to
Yeah.
do more, be better.
And empower you.
Yes, empower
Mhm.
you and whatnot. And Katie Hess has that in her, as a few other people in our company do too. But it's nice because you get so much more out of those people than the ones that that are fearful of you or that you try to, push around and force and yell at and
Right.
this, that, and the other thing.
Well, you're making me think of something we spoke about earlier. I believe, like in life, in the work setting, that place people where they'll thrive, in areas that they'll want to work.
Okay.
But my thing is, if you say you're going to do something and then you don't, and you don't, and you don't, there's only so much I can take. So it's not a matter of me. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. Don't do it. But then don't be here.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, are you talking about the owner of the business or an employee that you're working with?
An employee. Well, I guess you.
That's why I was
Yeah.
listening to you. I was like, are we segueing into the owner or somebody that you're working with? In other words,
But
if they want to do it, they want to do it. Because I've worked with people that, I'll be sitting there cleaning and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Cleaning." They don't want to clean.
Right, I know. I had that happen in one of your restaurants. I'm going to say which one. I was working, and I had my.
You can say which one. It's okay.
I had my system, and I would come in because it was at 3 or 4 o'clock, so we weren't busy. So I would come and I would clean this and I would clean that, and I would go through everything, go through the glasses, to the menus, to the utensils, anything on the wall if it was still dead. And a server would watch me do it over and over, week after week, and had the balls to say to me, "Oh, this is dusty." Took everything in me not to throat chopper.
Oh, after this episode's over, you got to
Oh,
tell
I
me
gotta
who
know
that
the
was.
name.
Yeah,
You
now
know who it is. I
I'm
told you. I'll
really
tell you after.
Can we
curious.
not
Yeah.
say the
Okay.
name? Are we not allowed to
And
say
I'm
the
just
name? Oh, I know
no,
you're
do
talking
not.
about.
Yes, you do.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking
And
about.
I was just amazed that every shift you could watch me work, which is fine. That's your prerogative. I'm not telling you to do what I'm doing. That's up to you. But do not do that.
Well, listen,
with me.
talented people can work anywhere they want. I'm sorry. This is a true story. So, you hopping into that restaurant and doing that, that's a varsity player with a JV player that's saying, well, but you're the same age. You're both seniors in high school. There's a reason that person hasn't gotten ahead because they're not willing to do.
Right.
Doers get ahead. Non-doers just complain and wait for things to happen, and then they react. Great excerpt out of the book, Peter Thiel, 0 to 1. I completely lost what I was going to say because I was just going back into the book and thinking about it.
But isn't it hard though? Let's say you have a lion that walks in as an employee and you want to keep them around, but you're a new business. You haven't gathered any other lions yet, and you have a weak front. It's hard to keep that lion in the restaurant when they're working with that. Yeah. And how do you keep that? I don't know if this is another episode, but how do you gather, a herd of lions? No, something.
Well, if you have one lion and 16 hyenas working in the front of the house, I think the hyenas culture is going to take over.
It is.
If that lion gets another lion, it gets a little more dangerous, and you want that lion culture as opposed to the hyena culture. No offense to any hyenas out there.
But it's like Liz,
example.
if she had somebody else there, they'd be like, okay, like you do that. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to fix this over here, do that. Instead of somebody,
oh my God.
Well, that goes back to growth and refinement, because we've pulled some people out of there, servers, really strong servers, to go work at other restaurants. And we've also pulled people there to come into the group. And what happens? The store suffers. The restaurant, the guests suffer. The whole culture suffers. And then it's called rebuilding a culture again. And how often do you want to do that? I think the easiest thing in the world for us to do would be to, stop growth. Let's say we lost everything tomorrow. Let's say we open up a restaurant tomorrow. I promise you, it's going to be good. If I have 100% full undivided attention on one restaurant, forget about it. Him, forget about it. It's over. And we can live our life okay with one restaurant. But why not give it a shot? Why not give it a try? All the things that we talk about, all the mistakes that we make, I think it's okay to make mistakes. I think some take longer to learn from than others. But that's why I love what you said about, systems in place and getting what. It's really, and, what's Kara Restaurant Group? What's our motto? Consistency builds credibility.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you were talking about. But then I took it the other way because you were right. Basically, so I was just looking for a way to defend myself. And then Nico got all fired up, and then he hops on, and how many
I can't even watch that episode anymore.
The more I watch it, from our what's it
makes
called?
Me cringe.
The more I watch it, the more I'm like, okay, I like it. I know it's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch.
It's much easier to watch when, look, men are dumb. We all know this, right? Guys, come on. Obviously, we're dumb. So instead of just conceding to the battle, but we started a debate, and I was losing the debate, and you were right. But
I'm okay with debate. I'm okay with differing opinions. I don't need you to agree with me. My issue is I'm speaking on the side of the employee, and you're telling me I'm wrong. That's a problem. And you were condescending, the two of you, and I was feeling it at the time, but when I go back and rewatch, I'm like, you know what? I can't even watch this anymore, because if someone else saw it, they would, as an employee, they'd be turned off by it.
Yes,
I would be.
Agreed. And that's why, being in the moment or sitting here, sometimes you just forget that the cameras are on or the audio's on, and you just, talk about things. The reason I felt comfortable talking to you like that is because I know you.
Right.
I've known you. So can you translate what I'm saying into not being condescending? I've already learned that I sound condescending on camera. Even when I'm not trying to be condescending, I'm learning. I'm like, is that how I look when I
Yianni
talk to
mentioned
people?
that last year at some point. He's
I'm like, holy shit.
The first time he saw his videos, he's like, do I really come across that way?
Yeah.
Is it that bad? Like, even when the cameras aren't on? And Nico and I just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told him.
It's up and down.
Last year we had a phone conversation, and I was talking about the restaurants, and I was voicing my opinion, and he was like, are you done with your rant? And I had a moment where I thought, I don't know if this friendship is going to work. I don't know if this is going to continue, because I'm okay. I'm totally okay with people not agreeing with me.
Yeah.
That is perfectly fine. but I don't like being spoken down to. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
I just wanted to pull you into the dark side of business ownership. And, you know, if we're going to simplify it and instead of using restaurant IQ, I'm just going to be sensible about this and tell you that just because I've experienced the employee side and the ownership side, I wanted you to come over and experience the owner side. That way you have
Right, I
both
get
sides.
that.
Just that there's really, there's not much more to it than that. I just want you to experience both so we can have that conversation. I think that's where the frustration comes in.
And I get that.
Especially when you're capable of it. And I see, I'll use Nico for example. Like I smelled fear on him for many years. It's scary. It's scary as but now I'm like, perfect. Feel the pain, come on over. It's a good thing. And fear, I think because I started so young, that's why, because when you're young, what fear is there? There's no family,
Right.
there's no responsibilities. I'm like, I'm just gonna go all in.
Right.
Sleep in my car, work at this restaurant, do whatever it takes. And I think the older, it gets harder. It gets really hard.
Yeah.
Especially with responsibilities and whatnot. So, on that note, what would this episode be called? Any thoughts? We'll talk about it afterwards.
Do I really have to buy my own T-shirt?
Do I really have to buy my own T-shirt?
Yes.
Shout out to Flying Fish from Restaurant Punk. I am Yianni. This is Liz, and your name is
Peter. It was a pleasure.
Peace and
Thank
grease
you.
from us. Love you guys. See you on the next episode.
Bye.
Out.